We live in a time where many adults are trapped in grown bodies, but their minds have not yet matured. They avoid responsibilities, flee from emotional challenges, and prefer to hide in comfort zones. What is happening? What Carl Jung predicted decades ago seems to be coming true: the phenomenon of Puer Aeternus. This modern man-child, who resists growing up and clings to eternal adolescence, is a reflection of our society that favors the pursuit of immediate pleasures and the avoidance of responsibilities. But are we destined for this? And more importantly, what can you do to avoid falling into this trap? By exploring the concept of Puer Aeternus, Jungian psychology offers a powerful key to understanding how to escape this cycle of emotional immaturity. If you've ever felt that your life is stuck, or noticed that there is a part of you that refuses to face the challenges of adult life, then keep reading. This is the time to discover how to walk the path of true emotional maturity and begin your process of individuation. The best part, it all starts with a simple decision. The decision to grow up. The courage to leave the comfort zone is one of the first steps in the process of personal and psychological development. As André Cher Marie-Louis illustrates, leaving the known shore is a powerful metaphor for emotional growth. When someone ventures beyond what is familiar, there is an expansion of the self that is often frightening but necessary. It's like heading into an unknown ocean, full of uncertainties, but also full of new possibilities. On this journey, it is crucial to embrace discomfort, understanding that fear is part of evolution. For many, leaving this familiar shore involves breaking away from patterns of emotional dependence or the idea of absolute control. This kind of courage is vital for those seeking individuation, the Jungian process of becoming truly autonomous. People stuck in a predictable and routine life often feel stagnant. They know that something greater awaits them, but the security they find in familiarity prevents them from moving forward. The biggest challenge here is realizing that comfort, as tempting as it may be, is the enemy of growth. However, this courage does not arise overnight. It is something that can be cultivated through small actions that challenge the status quo. Carl Jung believed that every process of individuation begins with a crisis of consciousness, a moment when the individual is forced to leave the shore of their childish beliefs to explore the depths of their unconscious. A practical example: trying something new that you've always wanted, such as studying an unknown field or starting a hobby that challenges you intellectually. This small step can already push you into the ocean of self-knowledge. Throughout the 20th century, Swiss psychologist Marie-Louise von Franz observed an intriguing phenomenon. Many adults, though physically grown, remain trapped in a childish mindset. This phenomenon is sometimes difficult to identify at first glance, as these people occupy prominent social roles, have professional responsibilities, and even form families. However, emotionally, many remain fixed in childhood attitudes. Avoiding the challenges of psychological growth, the mind seems to resist maturity, as if the passage to adult life were a threat to be avoided at all costs. This pattern of emotional immaturity reveals a difficulty in dealing with deep responsibilities and complex decisions. A person can be highly competent at work, but incapable of navigating emotional conflicts or intimate relationships. Remaining stuck in impulsive behaviors or constantly seeking external approval. In such cases, Jungian psychology offers a key to understanding these blocks, explaining how the unconscious retains childish aspects that, if not confronted, prevent maturity. It is not uncommon to see these people avoiding situations that require introspection or reflection on their own vulnerability. But how can someone begin to overcome this childish mindset? The answer may lie in deliberately seeking activities that require patience and self-reflection, such as meditation or even the study of analytical psychology. The process of individuation, central to Carl Jung's work, encourages confrontation with these areas of immaturity. Reading works like Jung's Man and his Symbols can be a starting point for understanding how the unconscious influences this behavior, promoting psychological growth that, in most cases, is just waiting for an opportunity to blossom. The Puer Aeternus archetype, or eternal child, described by Carl Jung and explored by Marie-Louise von Franz, refers to people who refuse to grow emotionally. These individuals, like the famous character Peter Pan, live in a perpetual state of dependence, usually tied to a dominant mother figure or the incessant search for adventures and immediate pleasures. This archetype represents great emotional immaturity, an escape from the challenges of adult life and responsibility. In practice, these people tend to avoid serious commitments, both in the professional sphere and in personal relationships. This phenomenon is especially visible when we observe the difficulty these individuals have in dealing with any form of limitation. The presence of the Puer Aeternus archetype is often associated with an excessive emotional dependence on the mother, or what this figure represents in psychological terms: safety, protection, and comfort, instead of seeking their own individuation, that is, the construction of an autonomous identity. The man-child remains in a psychological state of immaturity. They live on the edge. But how can one break free from this archetype? Jung pointed out that the first step is awareness, recognizing that self-sabotaging behavior and the refusal to grow are barriers to true personal development. From there, it is possible to start a process of self-knowledge, which may include therapies like analytical psychology. A practical example would be the use of the active imagination technique, where the individual dialogues with these immature parts of themselves, seeking to understand their motivations. This confrontation is essential to transcend. Marie-Louise von Franz predicted that the Puer Aeternus arche, this rise of the archetype, has profound implications. From the inability to establish healthy romantic relationships to difficulties in the job market, many men remain trapped in a commitment-free lifestyle, driven by immediate impulses and avoiding any decision that would anchor them to greater responsibility. This behavior reflects a kind of block in the process of psychological growth, where the fear of losing freedom prevents them from moving on to more mature stages of life. It is, however, understanding this trend is the first step to overcoming it. Being aware of how the Puer Aeternus manifests and the difficulties it imposes can help people seek ways to mature, investing in psychological growth. Whether through Jungian therapy or even the adoption of self-knowledge practices is essential, a practical suggestion would be to read The Development of Personality by Jung, which offers insights into the process of individuation and how to transcend these barriers. This way, it is possible to reconnect with the adult essence, finding a balance between freedom and responsibility. Nowadays, many young adults find refuge in virtual worlds, such as video games and pornography, to escape the pressures of real life. These environments provide a sense of control and immediate satisfaction, offering a powerful distraction from the challenges of independence and personal growth. The problem is that while these activities offer temporary relief, they can contribute to maintaining a childish mindset. Immersion in these spaces prevents the individual from facing the complexities of adult life, prolonging their emotional development. This behavior of escapism is a clear manifestation of the Puer Aeternus archetype, which refuses to deal with the responsibilities and uncertainties of the real world. Carl Jung warned about the dangers of disconnecting from reality and living exclusively in a fantasy. Just like Peter Pan, these individuals remain in a bubble of pleasure and fantasy, avoiding the pain of psychological growth. By doing so, they miss valuable opportunities for self-knowledge and building a fuller and more meaningful life. To break this cycle, it is necessary to create a healthy balance between entertainment and real life. A practical action would be to set strict limits on the use of virtual worlds. replacing part of that time with activities that promote personal development, reading about analytical psychology, or starting a mindfulness practice can help bring more awareness of the impact of these escapes. By reconnecting with the real world and facing difficulties, the individual begins to walk the path of true emotional maturity. The mother complex is a powerful psychological force that can hinder emotional growth, especially when the relationship with the mother is overly protective or controlling. In many cases, the individual, often the man, becomes emotionally attached to this mother figure, unable to establish the autonomy necessary for their development. This prolonged dependence makes the process of individuation difficult, a central concept in Jungian psychology, which involves the symbolic separation from parents so that the individual can form their own identity. Carl Jung believed that this complex manifests as a form of resistance to maturity, in which the person, either consciously or unconsciously, chooses to remain in a zone of emotional security. In this context, the Puer Aeternus remains attached to the comfort represented by the mother, avoiding the challenges and responsibilities that independence brings. The result is prolonged emotional immaturity, in which the individual struggles to make significant decisions and form healthy bonds in other areas of life, especially in romantic relationships and work. Overcoming the mother complex involves a courageous journey of self-knowledge and often symbolic separation. A practical example would be starting by recognizing this dependence and seeking ways to distance oneself emotionally, whether through therapy or cultivating new experiences that promote autonomy. Jung suggested that this individuation process requires not only rational understanding, but also emotional confrontation of one's fears and blocks. Thus, by confronting the mother complex, the individual can take a crucial step towards true psychological growth. Traditionally, the role of the father is crucial in helping the child break away from maternal dependence and move towards emotional autonomy. In analytical psychology, Carl Jung suggested that the father figure serves as a guide to the outside world, encouraging the development of individuality and separation from maternal influences. When this father figure is absent either physically or emotionally, the individuation process can be interrupted, leaving the individual with a sense of emptiness, lack of purpose, and often an incessant search for external approval. Without this balanced authority figure, the individual may remain trapped in emotional dependence, still governed by the mother complex. Here, the Puer Aeternus finds fertile ground to flourish, as the absence of a solid paternal reference makes it difficult to make the symbolic cut necessary for psychological growth. In many cases, this void is filled by substitute figures or by seeking validation in inadequate environments, such as dysfunctional relationships or even escaping into the virtual worlds previously mentioned. However, it is possible to find other ways to access this paternal role, even when it is not present in a traditional way. Mentors, leaders, or even literature can serve as references for those seeking to break free from this dependence and find their own path. Books like Memories, Dreams, Reflections by Carl Jung can serve as a guiding light, helping the person understand their own individuation journey. This process requires discipline, self-knowledge, and, of course, the courage to leave behind the old ties that prevent growth. Historically, initiation rituals played an essential role in the transition from adolescence to adulthood. These rites symbolize the abandonment of childish attitudes and the acceptance of the responsibilities of maturity. In many ancient cultures, young people underwent ceremonies that connected them deeply with the community, teaching them the value of discipline, courage, and commitment. In Jungian psychology, these rituals are seen as essential to the individuation process, as they mark the beginning of the journey to becoming a complete and emotionally mature human being. Nowadays, the absence of these maturation rituals has left many young adults lost. Without clear guidance for this transition, modern society with its focus on individualism and freedom, often neglects these moments of passage, resulting in adults who continue to act like teenagers, never facing the challenge of truly growing up. This contributes to the proliferation of the Puer Aeternus, especially among those who do not find a defined path to maturity, remaining trapped in cycles of emotional immaturity and psychological dependence. Although formal rituals may have disappeared, it is still possible to create transition moments that symbolize this maturation. Engaging in challenges that test your skills or taking on long-term commitments can serve as a form of modern initiation. Investing time in projects that require patience and dedication, such as learning a new skill or leading a group, are practical ways to mark this transformation. The important thing is to find ways to challenge yourself and accept the responsibility that comes with psychological and emotional growth. Now that you understand how the Puer Aeternus archetype influences the lives of so many adults and prevents true psychological growth, the question remains, what will you do with this knowledge? Are you ready to face your own resistances, leave the world of eternal childhood, and start the journey towards emotional maturity? The path of individuation is not easy, but it is essential for those seeking a fuller and more meaningful life. How about starting today? It can be with small actions, reflecting on your fears, setting healthy limits on your daily escapes, or even seeking the help of a therapist specializing in analytical psychology. Remember, change begins with a decision. The decision to free yourself from the shackles of emotional immaturity and embrace the process of growth. Subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to continue learning about Puer Aeternus, Carl Jung, and many other topics that can transform your life. Don't miss the opportunity to continue your personal development journey.